Convening the joint hearing on Committee on Energy and Environmental Protection, along with the Committee on Human Services and Homelessness, this morning, 9 a.m., February 10th, Tuesday, in room 325. We're hearing one bill, House Bill 2284, relating to energy assistance. So this measure will establish the Hawaii Home Energy Assistance Program within the Department of Human Services to assist qualifying households in paying their energy bills. It would require the Public Utilities Commission, Public Benefits Fee Administrator to provide certain information and assistance to recipients of the program. First to testify, we have DCCA, Michelangelo, in support.
Board Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Michelangelo, Executive Director for the Division of Consumer Advocacy. We stand in strong support of this administration bill. I'll be available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Next to testify, we have Department of Human Services, Brian Yamane, in support on Zoom.
Not present.
Present. Thank you. Moving on, we have Public Utilities Commission, John Itamura, Chair, in support in person.
Good morning, chairs, vice chairs, members of the committee. My name is Ashley Norman, utility analyst with the Public Utilities Commission. Here on behalf of Chair Itamura, I stand in support of this bill. I'm available for any questions. Mahalo.
Thank you. Next, we have Hawaiian Electric, Shannon Olivedo, in support in person. Not Shannon.
Hello.
Next to testify, we have Shannon Olivedo from Hawaiian Electric, here to testify. Perfect, thank you so much. Last to testify, we have Kauai Island Utility Cooperative, Scott Sato, Government Affairs Manager, in support. Not present. Members, are there any questions?
I have a question that since DHS is not here, I don't know if DCCA or even the Public Utilities Commission might be able to answer. I want to find out if we're asking them to write their administrative rules for this program, would they be able to adjust? So for example, right now we have an extremely generous program for TANF beneficiaries to help pay their utilities. Would they be able to adjust to account for such programs in distributing funds? Yes.
Sorry, Mr. Furtado, DHS, there's some confusion because I thought my director was on.
Okay.
So, but we do stand on our testimony, and obviously I'm here for questions. So I did run the LIHEAP program. I oversee the financial assistance programs. TANF does have restrictions, and they have helped out state LIHEAP in the past few years with providing energy crisis intervention benefits to any household with a child under 18. They did not have to be a TANF recipient. So they took a lion's share of the energy crisis intervention benefits for at least the last 2 or 3 years. Losing that funding is kind of detrimental to our program because we are back down to about 8 million for everyone. But there are other programs, as you know, that have been established, like the NRST and other programs that actual TANF recipients can also apply for.
I guess my question was a little bit different. So if we are distributing LIHEAP or HEAP benefits now, can they take into account that some families using current TANF reserves are getting extraordinarily large utility subsidies this year if they qualify for those under TANF?
Yes, so we'll have to work out the rules.
But it just meaning logistically, is that possible? Is that something that you folks are able to do?
We could, yes, and determine whether we would allow double dipping or one benefit or the other, because they're all federal as well.
And you folks would make those rules?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions, members, on HB 2284? Seeing none, we're going to move straight into decision making. Unless you
I
have.
had one more question. I don't know, do you already have a budget amount to put in the committee report?
It's in the bill, 1.5 million. Go straight to decision making? Oh, right. Okay, on House Bill 2284, we're going to move this forward. We're going to blank out the amounts and note them in the committee report and effect the date to the year 3000. Members, any discussion for EEP? Seeing none, Vice Chair, please take the vote.
House Bill 2284, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair voting aye. Representative Chun.
Aye.
Representative Kahaloa.
Aye.
Representative Kush.
Aye.
Representative Quinlan. Excused. Representative Matsumoto. Excused. Chair, your recommendation has been adopted.
For the Committee on Human Services and Homeless, same recommendation. Vice Chair, please.
Voting on HB 2284, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Representative Amato.
Aye.
Representative Hartsfield.
Aye.
Representative Keokaku Lilloye.
Aye.
Representative Takayama. Excused. Representative Takinouchi.
Aye.
Representative Alcos.
Aye.
Noting the presence of Representative Garcia, we are voting on HB 2284.
No vote.
Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you very much.
All right, we are, go ahead, Vice Chair.
We adjourn.
All right, good morning, everyone. It is 9:15 a.m. We're just gaveling in on the 9:05 a.m. agenda. It's Tuesday, February 10th. We are in conference room 325. This is a hearing of the Committee on Energy and Environmental Protection. We have only a few bills on the agenda today, but they might take a while. We want to have ample time for Q&A and for all the testifiers on all the bills. So for now, we're not going to impose a time limit, but we do ask that people be concise. And if things go too long, we may impose a time limit later. So first up on the agenda, we have House Bill 2486. We did hear a similar bill earlier, so anyone who feels like standing on your testimony, please consider that option. We are planning to pass something out on this. We just wanted to hear a couple different measures. So first up to testify, House Bill 2486. This is relating to plug-in solar or balcony solar or portable solar. First up is DCCA, Consumer Advocate.
Board Chair, Vice Chair, stand on our testimony. Thank you. Providing comments.
Thank you. Climate Change Mitigation and Adaptation Commission.
Hello, Chair, Vice Chair, Leah Laird with the Climate Change Commission. We stand on our testimony.
Public Utilities Commission.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair. Public Utilities Commission stands in for its testimony in support of the intent of this bill.
Thank you. Carbon Cashback Hawaii on Zoom. John Kawamoto. Please go ahead.
Hello, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is John Kawamoto, speaking on behalf of Carbon Cashback Hawaii, which advocates for legislation that reduces carbon emissions and strengthens Hawaii's energy independence while protecting vulnerable Kama'aina families. Carbon Cashback Hawaii is in strong support of HB 2486, which gives the 40% of Hawaii residents who live in condos and apartments an affordable option to generate energy, reduce their electricity bills in a climate-friendly manner. We have an amendment to suggest in a written testimony to adjust a reference to Hawaii revised statutes. I'd like to note that Hannah Ellis from Bright Saber has submitted testimony. She's very familiar with this balcony solar technology, and technical questions may be referred to her. With the suggested amendment, Carbon Cashback Hawaii supports this bill. Thank you for your kind attention.
Next we have Henry Curtis, Life of the Land.
Stand on our testimony.
Thank you. Green Party of Hawaii in support. KIUC on Zoom.
Morning, Chair Lowen and Vice Chair Pruso. Scott South from KIUC. KIUC stands on its written testimony, providing comments on this measure. Thank you.
Thank you. Kauai Climate Action Coalition in support. Citizens Climate Lobby in support. Greenpeace Hawaii on Zoom.
Good morning. Hi, good morning, sorry. Yes, Dave Mullins, Greenpeace Hawaii. We totally and completely support this legislation. In order for this legislation to have the greatest impact in expanding clean and renewable energy, we encourage the committee to remove unnecessary registration and reporting requirements to the PUC that places needless barriers on customers and being able to install plug-in solars. As mentioned earlier, Bright Saber knows all. If you have any questions about this, Bright Saber's are experts on this. Utah has already passed the legislation, and they are successfully moving forward with this system. One of the biggest problems in addressing the growing climate crisis is our ability to get off of fossil fuels. And as we saw with the fiasco with the city and county of their permitting process, they've delayed getting permits for solar panels onto rooftops up to a year and a half. If they had gone with the free solar federal app plan, you could have gotten it down to a few hours of getting permits. So the unnecessary regulations and restrictions are blocking us from moving forward with these solar apps and solar panels and the solar plugins. And so, please consider that in this legislation. And thank you so much for your ongoing efforts to protect our climate and our environment.
All right, we have 350 Hawaii on Zoom.
Aloha, can you hear me?
Yes, please proceed.
Hey, good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Sherry Pollock and I'm with 350 Hawaii. We are in strong support of allowing plug-in solar systems in Hawaii and appreciate the committee considering this and the other plug-in solar measure from last week's hearing. Our members are very, very anxious to see plug-in solar implemented. These systems are game-changing. This is about cutting energy costs and reducing emissions by updating our rules to match the realities of new proven technologies. Plug-in solar is simple and safe, including safety features that prevent electricity from backfeeding into the grid during power outages, protecting utility workers from hazardous live wires. I encourage you, as others testifiers have mentioned, to talk to the representative who happens to be here today from Bright Saver, who's an expert on these systems that can answer more questions on this. We just want to ensure unnecessary barriers are avoided so everyone has the opportunity to greatly benefit from these systems and be able to install them. For too long, the benefits of solar energy have been limited to homeowners with the capital to invest in rooftop projects. Plug-in solar reinvents this narrative, making it cheap and clean and viable for everyone, which is sorely needed to make our electricity more affordable. So we strongly encourage you to pass this measure and keep the language free of unnecessary barriers and enable everyone to participate. Our written testimony goes into a little bit more details on this. We just want to thank you so much for hearing this measure.
All right, then we have Solar United Neighbors in support, Hawaii Solar Energy Association in support, Chamber of Sustainable Commerce in support, Bright Saver on Zoom. And I don't know if everyone on Zoom heard our request to be concise that we said in the start. Is she present? Yeah, please go ahead.
Good morning, Chair Lowen, members of the Committee on Energy and Environmental Protection. My name is Hannah Ellis. I represent Bright Saver, which is a nonprofit dedicated to building the plug-in solar movement in the U.S. I'm testing to encourage the committee to support HB 2486 to allow the people of Hawaii to access plug-in solar, saving money by reducing their energy bills. This is a market-driven solution requiring no tax credits or public funds. It's just cutting red tape. Systems installed according to safety standards, including in this bill, will not shock users, overload circuits, create fire hazards, or backfeed during a power outage. I want to clarify a point that's come up in other committee hearings on similar legislation in Hawaii. To address the question, is plug-in solar safe for utility linemen if the grid goes down? Will electricity backfeed and potentially harm them? Yes, it is completely safe. As soon as the grid goes down, the plug-in solar system has an inverter, which is already certified according to 1741. This is a required feature of this equipment and has been used for over 25 years in the solar industry, and it's impossible for the power to continue flowing when that happens based on this certification. So in closing, I just want to say HB 2486 offers a clear and equitable pathway to expand access to safe, affordable plug-in solar for renters and houses across Hawaii. We respectfully urge the committee to support this bill. We're very excited to move it forward. Thank you.
All right, next up we have Sierra Club of Hawaii in support, and then it looks like we have 27 additional individuals in support. We have Paul Bernstein signed up to testify on Zoom. Okay, please be brief. We have read everyone's testimony and heard this similar content before. Go ahead.
Okay. Aloha, Chair Lowen and members of the committee. The only thing I wanted to say is I think the key with balcony solar in any of the bills is just to remove the balcony solar or plug-in solar from restrictions around feed-in tariffs and interconnection fees. Mahalo.
And was there anyone else here to testify in person or on Zoom on this measure? No one on Zoom? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, Stacy Alapai on Zoom.
Aloha, my name is Stacy Alapai. I run a program called the Second Life Solar and Battery Project on Maui. It's a pilot program that we use plug and play batteries. It's kind of a step down from the balcony solar that you guys are using now. And I just wanted to express my support for this because there is a clear need for more accessible solar energy and batteries. I did want to ask that you amend to remove this requirement to register with the PUC. That's not a mandate for any other type of generator. And we often ask how many gas generators are running in our community, and we have no idea who they are. So if you are going to implement this mandate, I would ask that you also register gas generators so that we can track that data as well. And I also sent written testimony. So mahalo.
Thank you. Was there anyone else on Zoom or in present to testify on this measure?
I can give a brief testimony.
Okay, please be brief.
Yeah, I actually didn't know that plug-in solar was coming on. I'm a manufacturer in Kailua of energy products. We are actually integrating a plug-in solar hat on top of a air conditioner to remove the energy use of that air conditioner from the grid. So this would be very, very helpful for us if this passed. So we actually manufacture these devices in here in Hawaii, and that air conditioner or airform as we call it can connect to another device and provide more. It can provide a connection point for that solar into the air conditioner as well. So it'll be all integrated. So I think also I'm getting caught up on here, which is that registration would not be good. I think it would create a lot of barriers to in installing that system. So that's all I
Thank
have to
you.
say. Yeah.
Anyone else here to testify on this measure? All right, if no one, are there any questions? No. Okay, then we will move on to the next bill on the agenda. House Bill 1568 relating to energy. And this would prohibit the importation of or storage of LNG in the state and construction of infrastructure to go along with it. And we have a lot of people. All right, I'm not gonna implement a time limit for now, but I am gonna ask my committee clerk to set a 2-minute timer so that we all get a time check at some point. And if people go for too long, then we will put in place a time limit. Let's see, first up to testify, we have a consumer advocate.
Board Chair, Vice Chair, committee members, we stand in opposition to this bill and stand on our comments. Thank you.
Thank you. And then next up, Hawaii State Energy Office.
Chair Lowen, Vice Chair Perusa, members of the committee, Mark Blick, Chief Energy Officer. We stand in opposition to this bill. I just want to point out that however well intended, we believe it will perpetuate use of oil for power generation on Oahu and subject us to oil price volatility. And we believe that the bill doesn't also support the analysis that we've done that demonstrates this is the only option to be able to reduce costs of carbon. Thank you. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Next up, Public Utilities Commission.
Morning, Chair, Vice Chair, John Itumura, Chair for the Public Utilities Commission. We stand on our written testimony. Will be available for questions.
Thank you. And then Hawaiian Electric.
Shannon Alivado for Hawaiian Electric. We stand on our testimony with comments and concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Free Access Coalition in support. Clean the Pacific in support. Peleilani Farm in support. Kauai Women's Caucus in support. Green Party of Hawaii in support. Life of the Land.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, no committee members. Henry Curtis, Executive Director of Life of the Land. We find it ironic that the state would be suing the fossil fuel industry while bringing in a new fossil fuel industry. Mahalo.
Thank you. Climate Protectors Hawaii, Ted Bolin in support. Chamber of Sustainable Commerce in support. Huli Pack in support. Sierra Club of Hawaii on Zoom. Please go ahead.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Wayne Snaka with Sierra Club of Hawaii. We're in strong support of this measure. I'll just really quickly say The opposition is saying, not to take LNG or any energy source off the table until we have, examined it, right? And I think what they're missing is that there already has been an analysis of LNG, and what that analysis shows is that LNG will require placing a huge liability and a risk on local residents, like an H3 size liability, right? And the political and economic and technological realities that we know is that once we lock into LNG, we're going to be stuck with this dependency on an imported fossil fuel pretty much indefinitely, or at least until the climate crisis kills us. So please nip this bad idea in the bud and pass this measure, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And we have Hawaii Alliance for Progressive Action in support, Sierra Club Oahu Group, Angela Hunteber in support, Greenpeace Hawaii on Zoom.
Good morning, Chair and Vice Chair. Dave Molich, Greenpeace Hawaii. Thank you so much for hearing this legislation. We're totally in full support. It's important to note that moving from oil or coal is and then onto LNG is like jumping from the fire into the frying pan into the fire. Over a 20-year period, the carbon footprint of LNG is 1/3 larger than coal. It doesn't make any sense at all for us to be thinking about using LNG here in Hawaii. We already know that it's destructive to the climate and to our environment, and we need to move away from fossil fuels. This is ridiculous. So thank you so much for hearing this legislation. Please pass it. As you can see, the majority of people in the state already are against it. It is not popular, and it's not going to really benefit us. And once again, I just want to thank you for your ongoing efforts to protect our climate and the people of Hawaii.
Thank you. Then we have Green 350 Hawaii on Zoom.
Aloha, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good morning again, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. My name is Sherry Pollock, and I'm with 350 Hawaii. In the interest of time, they say that a picture is worth 1,000 words. Please take a look at this picture. The image at the top is from just last week in Louisiana. This is an LNG pipeline that exploded. What you see is a wall of flames, but what you can't see is extremely toxic chemicals that are spewing into the environment from miles away, affecting the community that's nearby. Note that there's homes in the foreground of this picture. This just happened last week. The picture at the bottom is from a couple years ago. This is from Freeport, Texas. And again, another explosion of this is an LNG facility there. This is a facility that JERA is a major investor in. Again, this is just from a couple of years ago. I just want to say thank you so much for hearing this bill. I think it's the most important bill that will be heard this entire session. Please protect us. Please don't let this come to our shores. You've said you've read the testimony, millions of reasons why LNG is a bad idea for Hawaii. Thank you so much, and please pass this measure.
Thank you. And then we have Kupuna for the Mo'opuna in support, Emua Alliance in support, Hawaii Gas in opposition, Ahahui o Hawaii in support, and JERA Americas on Zoom.
Hi, Chair Lowen and Vice Chair Peruso. Eric Montag here with JERA Americas. We have extensive experience with LNG, with renewables and all other forms of electricity generation. We're in opposition to this bill. We stand on our testimony and here for questions if there are any. Thank you.
Thank you. And then we have Clint Churchill on Zoom. Not present. Moanalua Garden Foundation in support. IQ 360 in person, James Pakele.
How's it? Hello. I submitted testimony that looked a little bit more pretty. I don't talk as pretty as the ChatGPT, but I just ChatGPT. I probably about a year ago I would have been in support of this. Today I am opposing it. And, you know, I've spent probably about the last 7 years, I guess, focused on affordability and stuff like that, you know. And I've heard a lot of talk about affordability. And in the past, I guess, 2 or 3 months, I had all these people come and talk to me about something like this and affordability. And so I've been, you know, looking into a lot of this. And I realized that, you know, we get one refinery that come here and they make all of the stuff that make money and then they sell them. And at the very end, the least, the least making money thing, this is what we power our electricity with. And I found it weird, and I asked the question, I said, if this lowest form, like almost a residual fuel, is what we power in our electricity with, how are we paying 3 times the electric as everybody else? I said, that's weird to me. And then as I look some more and I realized that we have this thing called import parity pricing, where because we only have one people that bring them in, we pay as if we're shipping the fuel in. So we're paying for shipping that no even happen because it's being created here on the island. But because the only other option is to ship it in, that's the price we pay, which is wild to me. And then on top of that, there's this something called ECRC, which I just learned about a couple weeks ago, called the Energy Cost Recovery Clause, that allow that cost to be pushed straight to the people. And I said, what? So I look at my bill and I turn them over, and sure enough, it says energy cost recovery, if that's not the highest price on my bill. You know what I mean? So not only, apparently this is on fuel that usually sell for by, I don't know, $10 under what they sell. Over here, they sell them to HECO for 3-4 times the amount because they're the only ones that make them. Now, I'm not mad at the refinery. They're doing what they're supposed to do. That's what they're supposed to do. They want business. They're supposed to do that. I'm not mad at HECO. They're operating in an environment that we wouldn't create. And so here, I oppose simply because I'll create an environment, or at least have the discussion about what would happen when you introduce competitors into the market, right? And I'm not saying I like the refinery go away either, because I would like the refinery to be strong and be a competing force that would keep the other one, you know, like, we're supposed to have harmony and balance that's supposed to keep each other honest. I like them stay strong competitors as well. But you gotta keep each other honest, and we're out of balance, and this is how we fuel our energy with the lowest, cheapest fuel that can get, and yet we spend 3 times the cost of anybody else almost in the state. And so for that, I oppose. Thank you.
Thank you. And then next up, we have Maka Gibson, Polluters Pay Hawaii Coalition.
Aloha, Chair Lowen, Vice Chair Peruso. My name is Maka and I live in Kaneohe. And I'm here today because I strongly support HB 1568. After living in Oregon and Washington for 14 years, I moved home in the summer of 2023. In the past 2.5 years, I've watched our HECO bill rise from about $100 to nearly $200. Granted, my ohana has grown since then, but this monthly bill affects our affordability to live at home. For local communities, energy decisions are more about power generation. They're about our kuleana to aloha aina and to protect the ability of our keiki and mo'opuna to thrive here. Our high electricity costs are driven by dependence on imported fossil fuels that expose us to global price shocks and long-term financial risk. LNG is often described as a bridge, but it keeps us tied to the same volatile systems and asks our communities to pay for costly infrastructure that conflicts with our state's 2045 renewable goals. True independence, energy independence, honors aina and community by investing in clean energy that is locally produced, price stable, and resilient. We're already seeing this approach work in Hawaii, showing that reliability and affordability can be achieved without new fossil fuel infrastructure. This bill helps us uphold our kuleana to future generations by keeping Hawaii focused on an energy path that is affordable, responsible, and aligned with our values. Thank you for your support.
Thank you. And then we have Earth Justice.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair. My name is Harley Broyles. I'm an attorney with Earth Justice.
We stand on our testimony in support of this measure, but I wanted to highlight a few things. The Green Administration waves the LNG wand as if this is what will save us from rising energy prices and our climate crisis. But LNG is not and will never be the solution for Hawaii. Hawaii does not currently have the infrastructure for LNG, and this alone would be $1 billion investment or even more. It will prolong our fossil fuel dependence and maintain or even increase our high electric rates, which are already 3 times higher than the US average. And LNG comes with the risk of fire and explosion, threatening the lives of our people and the health of our Aina. Frankly, the Green Administration and the State Energy Office is wasting our time with this LNG scam. This bill is the legislature's opportunity to veer us off the dangerous path that the governor has started us on and put us on the right track to investing our time, effort, and money in renewables, which will save our climate and ratepayers money. Please pass this ban to reassure the people of Hawaii that our government will keep true to its renewable energy goals and its public trust duty. Mahalo.
Thank you. And then we have Environmental Caucus of the Democratic Party in support, Castle and Cook Homes in opposition, Our Hawaii in support here in person.
Aloha, Chair and Vice Chair Mahalo for hearing this bill. My name is Evan Weber. I'm here on behalf of our Hawaii and our thousands of supporters across the Paeaina in strong support of this legislation, and I stand in support today in the interest of energy efficiency. Please pass this bill so you can save all of our energy, time, and resources. If the question is what is the best way to reach our 100% renewable energy goals and achieve affordable energy, we already have an answer. That answer is renewables. We've seen it on Kauai, we've seen it in communities around the world. We see it from the strength of local businesses and entrepreneurs who are advancing towards a solution despite the lack of help that they've frankly received from Hawaiian Electric, the state, and the counties since the state made the bold decision to set us on this path. And we've heard kind of in opposing this legislation today, we saw it in the pages of the Star Advertiser, that we should have this debate about what can be our best affordable energy solutions. The truth is we've already had this debate. When I read that op-ed, I was like, is this Groundhog Day? We had this debate in 2014 when they passed our 100% renewable energy legislation. We had it again and again when they passed climate goals and our 100% transportation goals. We had it under Governor Ige when people were proposing LNG as a solution at that time and he rejected it. And the only real thing that has changed since then is that there has been some more people approaching this current administration with the proposal to move forward on LNG, and this current administration has decided to give that more of a consideration. The affordability option of LNG has not gotten any better. This is really a political thing that is before us today. And so I think for legislators, passing this bill would save you all a lot of trouble. Do you really want to be the people that could have stopped the next multi-billion-dollar rail boondoggle, creating stranded assets that will end up burdening both ratepayers and taxpayers in the future by building out all of this infrastructure that will ultimately be sunken costs, and when we have to transition to renewable energy if we're serious about those goals? So, I insist, please don't give in to the politics, stay on the course and pass this bill.
Thank you. And then we have Blue Planet Foundation.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Vice Chair. My name is Francois Rogers. I represent Blue Planet Foundation. We are a local nonprofit. We've been here since the early 2000s. We're also part of the team of collective nonprofits who passed the 2045 bill in 2015. We've seen the trend of shifting of the energy portfolio in Hawaii, and it is really saddening to see that we're trying to retreat to something that we shouldn't be going for. My testimony stands. We are against, we're supporting this bill. We're completely against bringing in another form of fossil fuel. There are some people that mentioned the volatility of the price. Exactly the same. As long as we continue to import any type of fuel into here, the volatility will keep on rising. This does not even put into calculation that once we build this infrastructure, we're gonna have to continue to feed that infrastructure to pay up our bills, and this will end up in the ratepayers' bills. I think we have to be mindful. The solution is here today. We already know renewables works. It works in many jurisdictions. And as the Blue Planet team, I work with many countries around the world. We brought in 45 countries just last 2 years to learn from Hawaii. So Hawaii, needless to say, is a leader and an example to the rest of the world. So by retreating and going in the wrong direction, we're sending the wrong message to the world that we are not leaders and we're not doing the right thing. So please make sure that this bill passes through and that this does not happen. Thank you.
Thank you. And then we have Stanford Carr in opposition. And 113 individuals in support and 8 in opposition. I think I also see Rick Rochlo from HNEI here. Did you want to testify?
I'll just say a few words. I've listened to the concerns about LNG, and I share many of them. And in regard to the State Energy Office report, we've expressed a number of concerns to them that we think have impact on what the potential cost is. That said, our studies and the studies of other people do indicate that even if we meet our aggressive renewable goals with the variable renewables, we will need to have a significant amount of firm power. And at the current time, without other options being available in Hawaii, that will require some type of fuel. It will be some type of imported fuel. I think there are issues that need to be addressed with the proposals for both types of green fuels post-2045. That's the green ammonia in the HSAO report and the biofuels that HECO proposes, whether it's availability or cost or both. And so in conclusion, I think we need to be very cautious about anything we do with LNG, and I don't believe we're in a position to make a decision now, but I do not think we should close off our options because we will need to have a fuel that is available to maintain reliability of the grid in the future.
Thank you. And then I think we have one individual signed up on Zoom I missed earlier. Taisha Kukuya Kana on Zoom, not present. All right, was there anyone else here to testify? Please come forward.
Aloha, my name is Marty Townsend and I'm testifying in support of this bill. Thank you very much, Chair Lowen and Vice Chair Pruso for hearing this. I'm old enough to remember when Nextera came here and tried to take over our utility, and what a absolute waste of time and distraction that was. And JIRA is lining up to be exactly the same type of activity. And I just want to encourage and reinforce that you guys need to be the leaders here, right? It feels like the Green administration is going off the rails. They're panicking at the last minute, and instead of staying focused and getting the job done, they are leading us off into the bushes. And I feel like it is your job as a legislature to provide some guardrails to help keep them on the path. I do agree with Mr. Bukele's testimony about the absurd prices that HECO is charging, and I think that is the fundamental problem that we need to look at when it comes to affordability. Energy is a public trust resource. It's listed in the Constitution just like water. We shouldn't have a company that makes such absurd amounts of profits and pays their executives absurd salaries be in charge of how that public trust resource is distributed. We should treat our electricity the way we do water, and the entity that runs it should be more like the Board of Water Supply. Thank you very much. Please ban LNG and keep us focused on our renewable goals. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, there was a couple other names on Zoom I skipped over. Apologies. So we had Kamale Pai, and then Stacy Alapai again. Please go ahead. Okay, not present anymore. Is there anyone else here to testify? Please come forward.
Hi, I'm Josh Leong, and we are in support of this bill. I want to give our perspective as local manufacturers. My co-founders and my team have built a technology company here in Oahu that designs and manufactures energy infrastructure projects with products with a strong belief that the island can fully accelerate the deployment of renewables that will far outpace central fuel generation on every possible dimension, from economics, reliability, weather resiliency, safety, even beauty, and I think most importantly, speed to deployment. So we manufacture airforms in Kailua, strange I know, which are battery-powered integrated air conditioner heat pumps that reduce the cost of installation, relieves one of the largest power burdens to the grid, and helps create smarter, more resilient infrastructure to challenging weather events. We could not build this without the incredible success of renewable investments made so far here, and we are doubling down to supercharge this. Solar renewables are the winner of power generation, but still held back by infrastructure, physical design, and software to integrate them well. Every day, renewables, batteries, and electrified products grow cheaper, more intelligent, more powerful, more integrated, and more reliable than before because they are powered by the unstoppable momentum of the arc of semiconductor improvement. They are improving so fast that every year fuel-based central generation looks worse for the fact that it's central in an aging grid, and worse as a base load as it will never catch up on cost, return on investment. And this, just speaking from like a technology perspective, maybe more importantly, is that technology investment we are proposing can return back to our community in a meaningful way, gaining the island by keeping that intellectual muscle here and using it to build new products that adapts to our unique environmental and civic needs, such as converting every parking lot to a solar battery plant that implements EV charging, investing more into battery integrated agrivoltaics so that we can give farmers an economic hand, and allowing everyone in Oahu the ability to become a renewable power plant to their community, building more resilient microgrids across the island. 1 year ago, we were a team of 2, now we're a team of 20 engineers and designers in Kailua that produces one of the most efficient and intelligent heat pumps on the market.
Please keep your comments to the merits of the bill.
Oh, okay. Well, if you ban LNG, we can export products, and that's what we do, is that we can export green technology off the island. We do it right now to California and New York City. We also are one of the only US manufacturers to export to Singapore and Japan, and it allows us to invest in local developers, improving affordability for building and retrofitting housing. We work with commercial clients to reduce the cost of running their business, and we even power our own industrial lasers using this same technology, providing us the clean, high power to build more energy-saving products. So there are much smarter than people than myself that have done the legwork and homework on this, but I hope this was valuable as a perspective from a manufacturer that's based here in Hawaii.
Thank you.
And one day.
Next up to testify, please come forward.
Aloha, thank you for the opportunity to testify. My name is Kayla Economo, and I'm current resident of Kahuku. I strongly support HB 1568. A defining moment in my life was witnessing the Kukia'i Kahuku movement, where hundreds of my community members were arrested for protesting the development of industrial wind turbines. Watching my neighbors fight for their voices to be heard in decisions that shape their community fundamentally shaped my own understanding that climate solutions need to center the communities that are most impacted and not replicate the same extractive patterns that created the climate crisis. This experience is why I'm testifying today in strong support of HB 1568, not because I oppose clean energy, but because I believe how we reach our 2045 goals really matters. And it's important that we maintain climate credibility as a state and move forward and not backward. Hawaii has made significant commitments and sacrifices to reach our 2045 renewable energy goals. In Kahuku, our community has lived through the realities of large-scale renewable energy, and projects like AES and the wind turbines that were built there were a necessary step toward our clean energy future. To potentially introduce LNG infrastructure would undermine all of that work, and it sends the message that after everything our communities have shouldered to advance clean energy, the state would be willing to backtrack and lock us into decades more of fossil fuel independence. It also sends contradictory signals to investors, developers, and communities about whether or not we're serious on 100% renewable energy. This bill would protect against that, and LNG is not the path. It would only take us backward. Furthermore, I think we need to stop fighting yesterday's battles and really focus all of our energy on what can work. So HB 1568 provides that essential clarity for us to move forward with that, our limited time and resources, and focus on solutions that align with our mandate. Mahalo for the opportunity, and
Awesome, thank you. Was there anyone else here to testify that we missed in present or on Zoom?
Aloha Chair and Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Chad Conway and I strongly support HB 1568 to keep liquefied natural gas out of Hawaii. I began my career at Tesla working on battery and solar deployments. This was over 15 years ago. And I was able to experience and support hurricane relief in the Caribbean, where solar and battery were a lifeline for hospitals, shelters, and water systems, just like here in Hawaii. After the Maui fires, I went on the ground to support and found battery and solar powered homes became community living places. I've seen firsthand that local renewables with storage are most reliable infrastructure we can build on islands. We are told that LNG is needed because Oahu diesel and oil generators are aging. I agree those plants must be retired, but replacing old equipment does not require replacing it with another imported fossil fuel. Solar, batteries, geothermal, wind, and demand response can provide the same current capacity faster, cheaper, and with far more resilience. We already have proof. KUC now exceeds 70% renewable energy with lower and more stable rates than Oahu without LNG. Maui and Hawaii Island are planning to replace oil and clean resources, not gas. Oahu is no different, and it simply is just larger. We can do the same thing here. The investment math is clear. Building LNG would require roughly $2 billion for terminals, pipelines, and new gas turbines, probably taking at least 10 years just to deploy. If that same $2 billion were invested in solar and batteries, here we could have 1 gigawatt of solar and 4 gigawatt hours of batteries, enough to get us to 75 to 80% of energy needs here on the island without LNG. And the benefits compound. The fuel we stop importing becomes the capital to build the next wave of clean generation. By displacing Oahu's oil and not paying for LNG, hundreds of millions of dollars per year would stay in Hawaii, money that could finance more batteries, more rooftop solar, and just save all of us money. LNG would do the opposite. It would require weekly tanker deliveries and expose families to global price swings that have tripled and quadrupled in a single year. That continues to tie us to global pricing volatility. Resiliency is the most important issue. Storms are getting stronger and ports close when we need power most. Has anyone seen the harbor this week? The waves are crazy. And an LNG system would create a new single point of failure on one terminal, one pipeline, one harbor. Local renewables keep the lights on even when ships stop, and they avoid the environmental risks of methane leaks and coastal fuel infrastructure. And once we build LNG, it is nearly impossible to escape. These projects demand 20 to 30-year contracts to recover. This is why JERA is so excited to invest, because they want to tie us to a really long-term contract and that we will not be able to get off of. Hawaii has a better path that is already working. More solar, more storage, more geothermal, smarter grids with controls. Please pass HB 1568. Choose clean, local, resilient power for Hawaii's future. Mahalo for the opportunity.
Thank you. All right, anyone else here to testify on this measure? All right, we will move to questions. I imagine we'll have a lot. I'm gonna start and then we'll take turns. I guess first up, consumer advocate. I mean, just to level set the discussion here, can we talk about the cost of today's electric bills and what makes them high in Hawaii?
A big component of the electric bills at the moment is the expense. The expenses is imported fossil fuel.
So what are the cheapest forms of energy on the grid?
Historically, it's been renewable energy, most recently.
What's the cost per kilowatt hour on average of utility scale solar, for example?
I don't have the exact number, it varies by island, but I think what we've seen coming in has been most recently, at least
Say for Oahu, because we're talking about Oahu.
15 cents, but Oahu more recently 23.
And what is the cost per kilowatt, or what's the current cost of oil?
On a marginal cost basis, I don't have the number off the top of my head, but I believe, I don't want to speculate, but it's lower than that currently.
But you don't know what
I don't
would be
know
the
what
like avoided cost?
Not off the ECRC, I could look at.
The gentleman who mentioned the energy cost recovery on the bill, that's the fuel pass-through? What is that exactly?
That's a mechanism for passing the costs of electricity generated, well, the fuel prices generated back onto customers.
So that's a fuel cost for fossil fuel, or that's the cost of the PPAs?
I believe that includes both.
Okay. And your testimony implies, I mean, I'm curious, implies what seems like maybe a foregone conclusion that this investment will
I wouldn't say it's a
beneficial
foregone
for
conclusion.
customers?
I would say we'd have to, this is to leave options on the table to review before the Public Utilities Commission and our office.
Okay, that wasn't, I mean, that's the testimony I think I would have expected, which would be, it's not necessarily the right policy to completely eliminate options.
Agreed.
But I would say that that wasn't how I read your testimony, I guess.
To clarify, I would say that it would be an application that would come before our office and the Public Utilities Commission that would have to be reviewed to see in the Public Utilities Commission whether that's in the public interest. Ours, obviously in the public interest and the ratepayer interest. And we balance different aspects, safety, reliability and resilience, cost effectiveness and affordability are big things, customer equity and progress on our state's clean energy and climate goals. And we'd still expect to see progress on the RPS. RPS is the law.
So how much of those four considerations that you're looking at and the PUC is looking at would include, I mean, how sort of flexible is it, open to interpretation to include the consideration of sort of the opportunity cost or what risks it poses to the future to lock in to a long-term contract in the present for bringing in a new fossil fuel source and building out an all-new infrastructure to accommodate it?
I think in terms of, I think what you're getting at is there's a sunk cost and we have a big thing that ratepayers on the hook for. Any contract that would have to come before us, we would need to make sure that there was a plan to utilize that resource. And I think what we're hearing, what's before us, at least on Oahu, we need firm thermal renewable that has a fuel source that has a good degree of availability. So what do we do about that? And I think that's what we would expect to see in a contract. We would expect to see a contract that delivers the savings to customers, and the actions to reduce risk that customers were going to be on the hook for paying for a resource that wouldn't be used. But I would say we do need modernized thermal generation, and how we would handle that risk, that would be baked into our review, and we would expect to see contracts that dealt with that risk and dealt with better, we would expect to see more cost-effective, better pricing.
So to be clear, as you're discussing the impact on ratepayers or the affordability or the potential for savings, you haven't seen any numbers that we haven't seen. Have you seen
I haven't seen a proposal.
Have you seen anything put down on paper that JIRA is willing, that would be tied commit to if you approved it? Has there been anything that you have access to that we don't have access to?
I don't know what the legislature has had access to, so I don't know exactly. So, well, I mean, we've seen rough numbers.
I mean, just the same, what is the alternative report?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay. So right now, we still have no way of knowing, without seeing solid numbers, we have no way of knowing what the considerations are. On the question of the need for modernized generators, are there ways to accomplish that without it being tied to LNG? I mean, can not HECO, is this not part of the plan, or?
Burning, well, it depends on what's the fuel, right? And what's the cost of the fuel. So there's different fuel options available. There's continuing with residual fuel oils, which we have now, or you could burn biofuels or biomass as an example.
But my understanding is that the more modern, more flexible generators will accommodate many kinds of fuel.
Yes, and those are the things that we would be looking for, that the technology, any technology that comes before us, we would want to make sure that it has fuel flexibility, or at least a plan within how those generators are built, maintenance to adjust to renewable fuels. depending on what that might be, because we don't have a crystal ball to know what in 2044 would look like to have that transition over onto whatever that thermal fuel is.
Right, but the investment in new generators would could save customers a lot of money in efficiency, no matter the source of fuel, right? Even if it
You
continued
would
to
get,
be
there would be a gain if we're investing in more efficient generation, because you would burn less fuel.
And a more modern, more efficient generator would allow more flexibility, so you
And more
could
flexibility in
accommodate.
operating the units and presumably, hopefully, enable more renewables to come onto the system.
All right, I have more questions for you, but I know others do too, so I'll start with my vice chair.
And also my question is for you, so thank you for staying up there. So I'm curious if, in your estimation, or as things stand now, if the LNG infrastructure becomes obsolete before amortization, then that financial risk is borne primarily by shareholders or by ratepayers?
We don't know the exact amount of risk that would be borne. So the infrastructure that would have to come online, it depends on what the proposal looked like. We don't know at this time. So who builds it it matters. How they determine to recover that cost ultimately matters, and what the structure of the contract looks like.
Right.
But I would imagine if it was a business, they would at least attempt to recover some of that from ratepayers.
Right, and then I guess just to follow up, because it's my understanding with the return on equity policy with private energy companies, shareholders benefit, they have above a 9% return on their investment, which is, on infrastructure investments. Is that accurate?
That's roughly, I mean, we would prefer to see lower, but yes, yeah.
So, and then given that return on investments, their profits, then the remainder of the cost of financial risk would be borne by the ratepayers. Is that accurate?
Yes, if it's a utility that owns that infrastructure and has ratepayers, then yes, that would get passed through, presumably get passed through the ratepayers.
Thank you. I guess my only follow-up question is whether or not your consumer protection analysis includes things like methane leakage, fuel price volatility, carbon risk, and I know you talked about some of those things a little bit, but
the HRS 269, yes, those are all part of our analysis that go into the factors that we weigh. That falls under the progress on the climate goals and the state's clean energy goals.
And you won't be able to conduct that analysis until you see a contract.
Firm numbers before us. Yeah, in a proposal that would go to the Public Utilities Commission.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, I'm gonna do a quick question. Have you considered impacts to neighbor islands?
In terms of the climate aspects, is that what you're?
In terms of if, for example, PAR goes out of business and all the fuels are imported, what impact will this have on costs on all neighbor islands?
We haven't done that specific analysis, but it's something we would be concerned about if there was a business that was going, that falls a little bit above all the things that come before our office, but it's a factor that we would consider, I think, in our decision, in our recommendation.
So you're not sure you would consider, if you were analyzing cost on customers, you would only look at Oahu and not consider the impact to
we
neighbor
would
islands?
consider neighbor islands if there was a direct linkage between the impacts to neighbor islands.
I mean, what kind of it could be not only the cost of direct imports, but all the downstream products that PAR produces, propane, et cetera. Anyone who uses those could see their costs increase as well, potentially.
Potentially, yeah.
Okay. Would you support, would you, I guess, given the many questions that we have about, the alternative fuel report from HSEO sort of indicates that all this infrastructure that might be built specifically for LNG, pipeline, et cetera, would be able to be used for some other type of fuel source come 2045. There's a lot of questions about the realisticness of that claim. Given that, would you support the idea of requiring that any proposal brought to the commission for approval would have to include all the entire costs of fully amortized infrastructure by 2045?
I can say we would certainly, any application, we would ask for that information as part of the process, and I believe PUC would too. I don't speak for them, but it's certainly helpful to have as much of that information upfront as possible.
Right, and to prevent customers from being stuck with the cost of stranded assets. Okay, let's see if other members have questions. Okay, Vice Chair, go ahead.
I'm good with my questions.
Oh,
I'm fine.
Okay. Let's see, get up here next. I guess at the Energy Office, and thank you, Michael. I'm just curious, for the alternative fuel reports, how was that funded?
The alternative, that was paid through coronavirus funds that were provided by the government.
Which funds were those specifically?
It was a coronavirus fund. I can get you the exact name.
Okay, yeah, I'd like to know the exact line of exactly how that got funded. And it's also my understanding that JIRA did their own study in advance of the Energy Office's study to look at Hawaii, and that was brought to the Energy Office, and that maybe kicked off your decision to do a Energy Office study. Is that correct?
That's somewhat correct. I mean, what happened was that JIRA had approached our office, and I think they had been making the rounds about being interested in making an investment into Hawaiian Electric, and had talked about the possibility of natural gas in June of 2023, and I rejected that. But I told them that if they were serious about it, they should do a study with someone that actually has done studies on our electric grid in Hawaii, and then come back. And then, of course, in August 8th, we had the tragic wildfires. And shortly after that, JIRA returned and said that they were interested in providing funds to cover liability risk of the utility. That gave the whole thing a new complexion and started to be deeply interested in that. Anybody that was willing essentially to help maintain operations of our largest utility was something that we were interested in. And then later in the year, they actually did release a report, and basically that showed that the path that we were currently on under the integrated grid plan, batteries and biofuels, would be extremely costly.
Just to clarify though, your report followed on JIRA doing a report, and then the Energy Office decided to do a report. How different were the conclusions of the two reports?
A really good point. The governor basically said, after seeing JIRA's report, asked me to actually independently do an analysis. And the fundamental difference between what JIRA did, which only looked at the fuel, was that I knew that we had a power plant deficit issue, and we had aging power plants. So I insisted that our analysis also include the power plant issue, which needed to be changed, fundamentally needed to be changed. And that was a complete sort of change in the whole approach. And so we had the look at the power plant system, replacing that with extremely high efficiency plants, and then the idea of removing oil price volatility in the system. And then we also decided that we would only limit that to Oahu.
Okay, okay, well I have two questions then. Did you consider the cost to neighbor islands at all?
Yes, absolutely.
Where is that in the report?
It's throughout the report. In fact, the initial report, in fact, some of the initial drafts, of course, even looked at natural gas beyond Oahu, and we decided to not do that. And if you look into the appendices from Facts Global Energy, and also from our technical analysis of the cost comparison, we looked at essentially what would be the impacts on the refiners of our lone refiner, and that we determined that through independent energy services IES or through a combination of them providing or expanding their terminal system, which they currently have, they'd be able to supply all of those fuel products at similar prices to what we have today. But it also gave the opportunity for PAR to retool and to be able to turn itself into a terminal as well, or to make upgrades in its refinery to be able to make biofuels.
Okay, I'm not convinced all the downstream costs of having our one refinery close have been fully considered, but
That was looked at
Separate
by
discussion.
Facts Global.
I keep hearing this claim that gas prices aren't volatile. And I think
Natural gas?
yes.
Yeah.
I feel like it's widely understood that gas prices are volatile. I mean, they are tied to the cost of fossil fuel, albeit they are less than fossil fuel, but it's a curve that mirrors, so that implies volatility. And by nature, they would be tied to a global market, subject to impacts from global events, many kind of things that are fixed contracts for renewables are not. So, while we can both agree those prices would be lower than the price of oil, I think these claims that it's not volatile I'm not sure how we can justify saying it's not volatile.
So I'm glad you asked that. I'm glad you asked that question. I think the rhetoric around this issue involves a kind of a misunderstanding.
Are gas prices volatile or not?
Natural gas is,
Yes.
if it's under a fixed contract as.
If I say gas,
power-
just assume I mean LNG.
Yeah,
Okay.
so power plant contracts for generation are not purchased at the spot market. The spot market can be volatile.
So you would say the gas costs for LNG would not be a pass-through to customers the way that oil is? Do we know the contracts would be structured differently?
So the contracts will be structured as power plant contracts are structured on a fixed price, which could be indexed to oil if you want to kind of take advantage of the differential in that price. But they can also be purely on a fixed contract, which would guarantee a differential always, so from oil. So it essentially.
But it would still be tied to oil, what I hear you saying.
No, it could also be on a purely fixed price, which essentially if oil would drop significantly, then you wouldn't be able to take advantage of
A
that.
fixed price, the same as our renewable contracts.
Same as the renewable.
Okay, so
It
we
can
could
be done that way.
require that. We could require a fixed cost.
You could, but again, getting anywhere where you set in advance requirements that don't look at market conditions may very well shortchange the consumer. So you should give, our recommendation would give the commission the ability to
Okay,
do
but then
what
you
it's
have to
supposed to.
decide, because either you have a fixed cost contract and maybe you are, maybe you aren't missing out on some potential benefit, or you don't say you cannot say it's not volatile.
It certainly, when you have a blended contract that has some indexing involved in it, it still has been demonstrated through historical look at contracts to be less volatile, much less volatile than oil contracts.
Less volatile, but
Less-
still volatile.
If it's a blended contract, but you can also make it a fixed contract. So that's just something I think the commission and the consumer advocate would review when these proposals come
But
in.
frequently, contracts also exist that are not either blended or fixed.
Are
I
there-
mean, on the mainland, I don't know, do you know? Contracts for power plants supplying energy from natural gas would be a contract would it always be a blended contract, or would it be there could be
No, there's a mix
instances
of
where there are
these.
contracts that are just directly tied to the cost of oil? Or the
No.
cost of LNG on the market, which is tied to the cost of oil?
Yeah, I mean, there's different models for this, and it's done differently. Companies make a choice, or utilities make a choice of what level of benefit they want to bring consumers, and so they make a value judgment on whether or not they'll do a blended contract or a fixed contract, which may be a little bit higher in price.
Right, so a fixed contract or a blended contract would provide more certainty but maybe slightly higher prices, or a contract that didn't include that would be volatile. would include the
No.
volatility.
There would be not a third, there's not a third option. No utility buys on the spot market for their large natural gas needs. That doesn't happen.
Okay, all right, thank you. Other questions, members?
I have a follow-up, a quick just clarification, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Just to understand the timeline better, because I hadn't actually considered this before. So you're saying that your report came after JIRA had already approached you? You had substantive multiple interactions?
Yes, that's true.
And they had offered financial partnership or support?
Yes.
Okay. And then.
To the utility,
Correct.
not to the state.
You saw that as a benefit to the state?
Saw it as a potential benefit, something that needed to be explored. We certainly were not going to say, go away.
That's fine. And then I'm curious about you yourself did not write the report that you're talking about, correct?
It was my office, yes.
So your office did the research, the writing, the analysis?
We had a contractor as well. We had multiple contractors because it's a very, very complex issue. But Monique Zanfest, who's our head of energy efficiency and renewable energy, she's an environmental scientist, and actually she went into the project as a skeptic on natural gas, was the lead on the project.
So she was the lead, but did you have any consulting firms that specialize specifically just in LNG? So LNG consulting firms? Were any of those kinds of firms involved in that study?
Well, engineering firms that had expertise over all of this. So HDR was a principal contractor in this. And of course, they have local experience. They also understand siting things offshore. So we wanted to find somebody we wanted to work with somebody that actually had that experience and the knowledge of permitting processes and all of that.
And the report was meant to, or the title of it says alternative fuels, but did you?
Empowering an energy transition study.
Okay, so, but you didn't really look at renewables and increased emphasis on storage? You didn't consider those as pathways, is that accurate?
No, we did. What happened was we did a complete robust modeling of all the alternatives in meeting and potentially exceeding the renewable portfolio standard. The governor actually made it clear that he wanted to lower costs and lower carbon, but only if it helped maintain or accelerated our renewable transition. And so we modeled it so that we looked at every single target and that we had to meet those. So we fixed the model to say you cannot go beyond that. You cannot essentially circumvent that, or you can't create solutions that would back out renewables. And we also understood that like even in our analysis, we didn't even take consideration of things we know today, which make it even more difficult, like the 400 megawatts of offshore wind that has now been taken out of the integrated grid plan. So that even makes it more challenging to meet the renewable objectives. And at the same time, we conducted meetings with stakeholders to find out how and where could we accelerate the renewable transition. And from that, we created Executive Order 25-01. And that has a whole series of things, and particularly on Oahu, about increasing rooftop solar by using all of the roofs. And then we posed the challenge to the commission to help us review what it would take from a rulemaking standpoint and all of that to do that. So we were trying to pursue this parallel path to ensure that we continue to push ahead aggressively on the renewable front, took all of the neighbor islands off. In fact, on Executive Order 2501, we said you can do it sooner. You can actually achieve 100% by 2035 on the neighbor islands because of the land ability to place more solar and batteries and the geothermal opportunities, which we were all promoting. It was only for Oahu, which has this problem that we saw, is that you will most certainly perpetuate the use of oil for that firm power that has been discussed, that thermal generation need, if you don't essentially find something to replace it with. And only in that time period between now and 2045, we designed the analysis to show what options, that's the alternative fuels analysis portion.
Thank you.
Yeah, so that was the methodology.
Follow-up question, a lot of this has been discussed in, in several occasions already, but a lot of the assumptions in the alternative fuel report hinge upon the timeline and being able to deploy this infrastructure in a timely way. So, question, if there are delays based on permitting, supply chain, litigation, what, in your analysis, is the amount of delay that can still hold up and be cost effective for customers? I mean, if it's delayed by 1 year from your predictions, by 2 years, by 3 years, like what's the breaking point?
Well, our ideal scenario was that by 2031, the infrastructure needed to be in place. So that gives us a timeline, from today of 5 years. It's a very difficult, challenging timeline, as we know for anything that you want to build in Hawaii.
For building a pipeline down along the freeway, yeah.
Yeah. Pardon? Yes. So the notion is that that at least under a reasonable time frame that shows permitting under normal kind of permitting timeframes, expectations, that could be achieved if things proceeded, let's say by the end of the year. That could be.
So the question is, what amount of additional delay beyond the 5 years can your assumptions hold up to?
Well, under the analysis that we did, and I call it a straw man, that was in where we had proposed a new power plant at the AES coal site. And again, the power plant would be able to, this gets back to your point about stranded costs. We believe that much of the analysis and much of the infrastructure would not be stranded costs. So the power plant.
The question though is how many additional years of delay can your assumptions hold up to?
That's right, but I'm saying the part that will not be affected by that.
I understand you're saying not all of it is a stranded cost.
That's right. So some of this will not be affected by that timeline.
Understood.
So, but in terms of the natural gas contracts, we made it based on assumption that you could have a 10 to 15 year kind of contracting period that would be viable for these fixed price contracts.
So 10 years would be that's what you're telling us is on the minimum 10 years.
That'd be it's not, we would love to see proposals that showed whether or not that is accurate, whether it's 10 years or whether it's 15 years or whether it's 17.
I mean, I'm just trying to get at if hypothetically something came before the PUC and was approved, and then that's locked in, and now all the energy and attention is going towards making that happen, but there's litigation and there's supply chain issues and there's permitting issues and there are delays. And then it gets built 5 years later than you expected or maybe more. Are we stuck with it?
So again, I think.
And who bears the cost of that?
I think it's a wonderful question, and what we've seen since we released the report back in January of 2025 is that there have been now new scenarios that actually make a lot more sense than what we proposed from the private sector.
Okay.
And it definitely shows that time period, there's a greater extension of that time period that this could be built. It could still be in great financial benefit to the ratepayer.
But it would be less of a financial benefit to the ratepayers. The longer it takes, the savings for ratepayers to decrease.
Again, that's.
I mean, come on, is that accurate or not accurate?
Again, some of the information that I've seen in the last couple weeks demonstrates that it's actually not a significant cost difference.
Okay, all right, thanks. Consumer advocate, just same question, I guess, in your just big picture, gut reaction, if there's a contract that gets approved and the assumptions it's based upon are that something gets built in 5 years and then it takes 10 or more years to build before the infrastructure actually gets deployed, is it as big a savings to customers, or how does that, who bears the cost of that?
My assumption is it would be less fuel savings because the area under that curve where you're replacing fossil fuel oil with natural gas, presumably at a cheaper, which we want to see more cost-effective price, would be decreased.
Okay, thanks. I think for HNEI, you're available. I'm aware, have also reviewed HSEO's alternative fuels report.
Yes, we have.
Yes, and I think a lot of it depends on a commitment to a certain volume, right? A lot of the cost effectiveness depends on there being a certain volume of LNG that's able to be off taken in the state.
That is one of the factors, yes.
So I guess in looking at that, I guess similar question to what I asked previously, if that, well, actually, no, let me not confuse the two. I guess in looking at that commitment, if there was a contract in place that had a commitment to a certain metric that related to volume, what kind of risks could that pose for the state in the future? What kind of sort of opportunity cost would there be in being locked into one fossil fuel source for presumably at least 15 years, right, is what we're hearing, but possibly longer?
So I've not seen any new information that the State Energy Office was just referring to, but in our analysis, and the facts report that was in the appendix showed that given a certain amortization time, there was some total amount of fossil fuel that allow you to recover that cost. That was one of the factors in that cost recovery. You've already identified some of the others, you know, what happens if there's timing or other changes. Anything that would reduce that number would either reduce the cost benefit to the consumer or conceivably even change it from a cost benefit to a more expensive source of power. You can't look at just the quantity by itself. You really have to look at all the other assumptions in the model and look at the number of integrated scenarios. And I think one of the things that the State Energy Office looked at, you know, a word to get overused maybe, but looked at bookends. They looked at the state energy or the electric company's IGP plan that was developed with certain constraints and guidelines and did include a conversion to biofuels, which I agree is likely to be expensive, but that was the option. And on the other side, there was a conversion to a lower cost ammonia, which in HNEI's opinion, or okay, my opinion for this purpose, is unknown at this time. I'm not sure we even need to make that distinction into two studies. If a fuel is available for an engine that runs on LNG, it would probably work in an engine that runs on oil as well. So there are a number of elements of the assumptions that are all linked together. So quantity of LNG is certainly important, but it's only one of 3 or 4 or 5 factors that need to be looked at in an integrated fashion to understand the impact.
I mean, and so I guess in what ways does your analysis differ from the Energy Office in terms of conclusions?
We've not run the full analysis yet, but you know, areas that we think need to be looked at more carefully, I've already identified one, is the assumption that one pathway would go from oil to biofuels and the other would go from LNG to a lower cost green ammonia source. We think that can be looked at on an entirely neutral basis and have that not be a factor. Another one that has already been asked by the committee, a significant amount of the fuel gain can be achieved by repowering and putting in more efficient units, whether they run on LNG or oil. But again, that's not a simple answer. You have to look at the entire operation over that period of time, because you put a more efficient engine, you're gonna save fuel, you're gonna save emissions, but it has to be tied to the total cost of putting those generators in. So it's gonna depend on, you know, the infrastructure you need to put it in, the cost of actually doing that conversion, the fuel transport. So again, it has to be an integrated study. Saving fuel can be achieved with either one, but it's not just saving fuel doesn't necessarily mean saving money.
And then this proposal that was in the alternative fuels report, that the infrastructure, the pipeline infrastructure that's specific to LNG would then be reused for hydrogen, ammonia, or some combination. I mean, the future is far away, so I guess we don't know what technology advances there will be either in that or in the price of other types of renewables coming down, et cetera. But I mean, to make that assumption at this point, what's your take on how realistic that is, and whether there would even be fuel available, or that it would really be renewable?
I will make my comment and stand to be corrected by State Energy Office. My understanding was that the offshore infrastructure, the floating regas facility, and the underwater pipeline for LNG was not intended to then be used for the future fuels analysis. Now, I may be wrong about the regas facility would not be needed. If the fuel of the future is a green ammonia, that's a liquid source. So that, to my understanding, would be handled similarly to any other liquid source with some additional requirements, maybe some relaxation required because it's a liquid fuel. So I'm not entirely sure exactly what components are reused
on a cost, right, but I guess on a cost basis if someone proposed having a pipeline, what's in the alternative fuel report is a transition to hydrogen.
Yes.
Is that something that you view as realistic?
I think it's questionable at best. We've been working in that area for a long time. Certainly people are proceeding to try to make ammonia. And my assumption is that hydrogen would be a green ammonia source, not hydrogen per se. The efficiency of that production process from renewable electricity to ammonia back to electricity is very low. It certainly is technically feasible, but I think the costs are very uncertain at this time at scale.
Higher cost than biofuels?
I think they're just unknown. Yeah, I don't think we have any idea, but high cost is certainly a possibility.
Okay, and I guess would you think it would be valid to do some kind of analysis against possible other future alternatives? It just seems like this discussion is very much centered around comparing a future of continued use of LSFO versus switching to LNG, and we do have interest in investing in trying to see if there's geothermal resources available, as well as continuing, opportunities to bring more of the, variable renewables online and improvements in technology that would make that more possible. So do you think that adequate analysis has been done of all these possible future pathways next to each other? Are we having blinders on by only looking at these two alternatives?
Yes, the short answer is yes. I think we a little bit have our blinders on. I think there are other scenarios, even within the LNG to oil scenario, there are the intermediate ones of repowering units and looking at it with oil versus LNG and doing that comparison. There's the more equal comparison of what that future fuel might look like. Are they applicable to both oil and the LNG pathways, and what are the implications of that? And then for both, if we're saying we're going to contract or we're dependent on a certain amount, we do have to leave open the option of what if even if there's something as modest as 100 or a couple hundred megawatts of geothermal, that does make a significant difference. Similar to whether geothermal will be there or not, there is, in my opinion, a lot of uncertainty on our trajectory for meeting, if you want to say it, our variable renewable goals, getting to 70%. I presented some numbers at the Hawaii Energy Policy Forum that show we need a lot, not only do we need a lot more utility scale solar, we need a lot more rooftop solar. And the numbers show that we need a faster growth rate than we currently have. So we need to double down on that and do that, but even with that, there's uncertainty meeting that. If we don't meet it or it goes a little slower, that's going to require more fuel for a longer period of time. We also have uncertainty about what the actual load will be, and that could drive it either direction. So What we're gonna try to do in a study is to look at what the implications of each of these changes are, to identify the risk and the magnitude of that risk, and then ultimately be the policymakers that have to decide, you know, which risk has sufficient benefit that it's worth taking and which ones may not.
Got it, okay, thank you. All right, a PUC, I guess. Just going back to the prior conversation about if a contract was approved and then there were delays, how would you, in the process of considering that approval, protect ratepayers from bearing any of those costs?
If there are any, well, if there are delays in the contract itself.
Delays in the execution of building the infrastructure?
Well, we typically look at that as part of the analysis, you know, in terms of building in whether we still want to approve it or not. You know, I mean, the delay also factors into the cost and the benefits too of that. So I mean, it would depend how long the delay is.
Well, but you wouldn't know in advance how long the delay was. So how are ratepayers protected?
Yes.
Oh,
you want?
Okay, so thanks, Chair. So part of that is going to be, you know, we look at the PPA and we approve the PPA. So if outside party, an IPP decides, independent power producer decides, hey, we want to update pricing, you know, the cost of balloons, we want to get recovery, you know, we have the opportunity to review an updated PPA, amended PPA. And at that point in time, we could say, hey, you know, the prices are too high. And we could just totally reject the new amended PPA and say, you know, either take the first one or, you know,
so
get away.
So once the PPA is approved, right, if there's any change or amendments to it, substantial material changes, especially like the price or anything like that, they have to come with an amendment. We have to approve that.
How would the analysis, I mean, how would it differ? Because my understanding is JERA wants not just to supply fuel or sell power, they want to build the whole new power plant.
So in that case, you know, and of course we don't know what it's going to look like because they have not come before us. So I want to proviso that real quick. But in that case, I imagine they would put in their proposal into the PPA. They would build the terms of the PPA so that it would cover the cost of the plant, cover the cost of the fuel, perhaps cover their ongoing expenses. So that would all be covered within could all be covered within the PPA itself. So they would, you know, if they had delays that resulted in increased costs, change in terms, as Anand has said, you know, that would be subject to initial approval from us for a Second Amendment, Third Amendment, Fourth Amendment to the PPA.
And we've had that in the past where we have to, you know, have amendments.
How does it work with the competitive bidding law? I mean, is that just as a general question? I mean, what parts of this would be subject to competitive bidding? Or how would, what's the mechanism by which this entire proposal would land in the lap of the PUC?
So typically, you know, when there's an RFP, right, a request for proposal, and you would have everything, it would come to us and we'll approve the RFP structure, and then the utility will issue the RFP. And then through that process, you know, they'll receive bids. There's actually an independent observer there too as well, and sometimes an independent engineer as well to help with the cost. And then it goes to that, and then the utility will eventually have to select based on the RFP. And RFP includes price and non-price criteria.
Sure, but for this type of project, for this type of proposal, would there be an RFP?
I believe so. It should be. I mean, we haven't done it yet, so I mean, I would think so. I can't say, you know, for sure.
But you would think it would be required by law or not required by law?
Well, the utility at any time can ask for an RFP waiver. So we don't want to be prescriptive to the utility how they want to provide their application. You know, they could seek a waiver, they could put in the RFP framework, you know, through whatever RFP framework we have going forward. You know, we currently have that framework in place. At times it's been very successful. So we would hope they would do it through the RFP framework.
Yeah, and they can request, I mean, there's certain requirements. If it's certain, above a certain amount, they have to ask us, you know, for approval, you know. And also for an RFP, it depends on the megawatts too. So to come to us, they would have to come to us, for approval. Obviously, most likely for yes, I would think so, for any type of large scale projects, you have to come either through a docket application or through an RFP.
Okay, I mean, there's no commissioner here, I guess, to answer this question, but if it happened, right, there was a PPA and then there were delays and then they came back and asked for an amendment to the PPA and then the cost went up considerably. I mean, the savings would be less, what was sold to the public would be changing, or potentially the entire project could fall through. I mean, how would all of this impact in the meantime, in the years that had elapsed since that initial contract was approved, which would probably be quite a process in and of itself? How would the commission continue to push forward on deploying renewables, on making HECO, do the best that they can in bringing their generators, modernizing their infrastructure and providing affordability and the best value to customers?
So I would say that case would apply to any project, it could be a renewable project, LNG, we've had that with renewable projects, we have delays with stage 2, RFPs. Lots of days, supply chain issues, delays and all that. So we've had that even with renewable energy projects, like utility scale too. So it's not just for potentially a LNG project too.
What is the commission doing to address that issue? I mean, how is the commission looking into what are the issues with delays in these projects, particularly as it relates to HECO, and addressing that issue effectively?
Yeah, so I know when you go through an RFP process like the IGP right now, Integrated Resource Plan. So that one we are making sure that when they develop the RFP that we have built-in mechanisms to kind of expedite the process if possible.
Does that happen? And you feel like there's enough accountability?
Well, again, there's some external
Are there issues with
factors.
interconnection that are being, appropriately addressed by the utility? Is there a sense of, by the PUC, is there a sense of urgency?
Oh yeah, I mean, we if you look at that inclinations too, we're pushing forward more renewables, in the future, right? So I mean, not just at the at the utility scale, but at the DER level too, at the rooftop too as well. I mean, that's part of the challenge too, because we
Okay, but what we see on our end is a lot of nice things being said, but not enough action being taken to hold the utility accountable for the role that they play in, what is sort of effectively laying the groundwork for us even having this conversation.
So one thing we also consider into is in our PBR docket, we have PIMs, or performance incentive mechanism. That's where something we can actually put in there too. We have to stick in the carrot as well too, right? So that's being considered now, because as we should reevaluate the next multi-year rate plan.
Well, hopefully there's something strong in there and it's not too little, too late.
That's definitely be considered, yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions, members? Let's see. I guess I'm not sure who to ask this question of. Maybe Justice, I don't know, or Marty or someone? Oh, someone from the PUC. Maybe Henry, I don't know. Wave your hands if you feel like you can answer this question later. But
What's the question?
I'm just curious, in looking at, I don't know how much the situation in Hawaii is comparable to other jurisdictions, because we're tip of the spear in a lot of the energy policy stuff, so it's hard to say. But I think there's a lot of concern that locking into a long-term fossil fuel contract now, given our goals, et cetera, will lead to some opportunity cost and lack of focus on pushing where we should be pushing, and also lead to a sort of path dependency, like there's a fear that we'll get used to this, we'll get locked in, and then there'll be an effort in the future to roll back our renewable energy goals, et cetera. Have you seen any evidence of this happening in other jurisdictions?
I haven't seen evidence of that in other jurisdictions, but I've seen evidence of it in this jurisdiction. I mean, there are already bills being introduced to try to roll back our PSS viz. And, you talk about the sweet spot for the HSEO report, right? You did a really good job of helping to outline, and just in this hearing, how narrow of a needlehead that they're trying to thread right here. And so once we don't nail it and get it through that hole, the pressure to it's like a snowball, right? The more momentum you get going in that direction, right? The pressure to just push it back 5 years, push it back 10 years will be immense. And especially when you have a foreign energy company like JERA who's going to make all this money off of it, they will have an incentive to lobby to make sure that it happens. And they are definitely investing. They've hired 2 or 3 lobby firms to help them get this done. It's a serious risk. And about other jurisdictions?
I don't know other jurisdictions per se, but I know what I understand from this model is that the investment we're making in LNG is to then convert to renewable hydrogen and renewable ammonia, and that conversion makes the whole thing economical, with the understanding that those 2 future technologies are unproven and may never come. And if they don't come, then we either have to maintain LNG or we have huge stranded costs. So that's a major problem.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, maybe consumer advocate. Just because no one's here from HECO. Is anyone here from HECO still? No one, everyone from HECO left.
No, we were all,
All the commissioners left. Yeah, so, question. I mean, is the commission doing an effective job of holding HECO to account for the role that they've played in us not being further along on our renewable energy goals, in projects not being deployed faster, in rooftop solar not being deployed faster, in delays they cause in interconnection agreements, both in the past and the present. I mean, are there proposals for repowering their power plants, bringing the best technology to Hawaii that will give us the most efficiency for whatever fuel is being burned and provide the most flexibility that will accommodate the most renewables on the grid? Is HECO doing what they should do? And is the PUC doing their job to hold them to account to do those things?
I think there's a lot of factors that go into where we're at today, right? We've needed modernized thermal generation for some time. And importantly, we need to continue to progress on our RPS goals. So looking at on the distributed side, what are the rate limiting steps that are keeping more distributed solar from coming on? We need to address those. If it's a permitting thing, then that needs to get addressed. If it's on the IPP side, if there's interconnections, I think what would be helpful is the utility help pointing to where locations are, and the grid is not plug and play, to be fair. You can't just plug in, there's capacity constraints on the grid. Understanding where projects have there's good land available, there are land agreements, working with the developers to come up with, I'd say finding prime locations on the grid to put those projects would be helpful. And I think that's gonna have to be something that we really have to be focused on moving.
Do you think the PUC do you think HECO is doing the best that they can? And do you think that the PUC is holding them to account to do the best that they can?
I think we always want to be improving on our processes, and that's my opinion.
Is HECO doing the best they can?
I think we could do better, HECO could be doing better in identifying where on the grid there's low interconnection costs, there's capacity to interconnect to the grid. And messaging that, I think that's an area for improvement.
And providing clarity to our
Clarity
independent
to the
energy developers about what's expected from them and not
Yes, and that benefits
giving them moving
from a
targets.
ratepayer's perspective, that benefits ratepayers because it decreases interconnection costs, it decreases time, it decreases uncertainty, all these things wind up as costs that get built in. that get baked into agreements. So we are all for reducing uncertainty.
And I would also, since again, a lot of people left, maybe I could ask Rick this question too, but I mean, our renewable energy still is the cheapest energy on our grid. Our local renewable energy resources, solar, wind, geothermal.
From an avoided cost, well, there's no marginal cost of fuel. It just depends on what the capital cost and that's a competing thing. What are the developers looking to make versus what is the
But
utility?
currently on the grid.
Currently, well, there are PPAs that cost more currently and ones that are being proposed currently than what generation costs from a marginal cost perspective. But that's gonna vary based on the price.
How close is that margin?
I don't know off the top of my head what the current marginal cost of generation is.
Is that based on our oil prices?
That would be based on oil prices.
Yeah. Are they down or up right now, or what's the status?
I don't, it
Varies day to day.
varies.
I guess also there's also volatility. I mean, these are other things to consider is
Absolutely.
there's volatility not only in the oil and, the fuel market, but also in our own government in terms of, are there tax credits, are there not, what's being subsidized, what's not. And I think there's opportunity at this point. We can sort of have to expect continued volatility, like it could swing in either direction too. So I mean that
Yeah, that's right, and GHG considerations as well, environmental impacts, yes.
All right, I'll try to make this last question, I guess for Rick, if you're.
Yes.
You could just speak to the different cost, like the cost of energy on the grid, because I think people are concerned about electric prices in Hawaii, and I think that there's over many years and for very specific reasons, not unintentionally, there's a lot of misunderstanding among the public about whether our renewable energy goals are costing customers more. I mean, you can look at KIUC as a good example of it bringing costs down, but on Oahu or other neighbor islands as well. I mean, currently, the lowest costs on the grid, if you look at, separate projects, which have the cheapest cost per kilowatt hour?
So we've been looking at some of those numbers and take all of this with a little bit of need to be checked. So the wind projects, because of when they were put in and the cost of wind at the time, and at the time of very high cost of oil, I think are relatively expensive on a per kilowatt hour basis. That may be some of our more expensive energy.
If they haven't been renegotiated, like if they're still tied to avoided costs.
Even if they're not, I think they're even past the avoided cost tie-in on those. They were relatively expensive projects. So if they get repowered and they go forward, they should be able to be negotiated down. And they're a little bit higher, but at the time they were probably good relative to oil, but oil was more expensive. The utility scale solar projects that have gone into date, assuming they are meeting the production numbers that were used to negotiate the PPA costs, and they're not paid on a per kilowatt hour basis. They're paid basically a monthly fixed amount if the plant is operational, so that the weather and integration aspects depend on utility. Those are probably our cheapest electricity going in the grid, and probably somewhere 10 to 12 cents a kilowatt hour to deliver. My understanding is that oil, I think in the last couple of months, has been coming in around 17 cents a kilowatt hour delivered to the grid, kind of that cost recovery charge, which includes the production cost. So it's not just the cost of fuel, it's the actual production. I don't have numbers for the new PPAs coming in, but they were, every new project that comes in, it gets a little bit more difficult to site it. The land is not quite as good. And now we've lost some of the tax credits. So I think the expectation is those numbers will go up. They may well be kind of around where oil is now, but oil's not going to stay where it is. So
Would you say oil is low right now or high right now or somewhere in the middle?
I'm not the expert on that one, but I'd say it's relatively low now. You agree?
I'm gonna look up the price of oil today.
Okay. It's been a good bit higher,
It's
right?
relatively low right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
So we expect, at some point, we expect it will increase.
I would expect
Yeah.
that to be, particularly if you take a longer view over a decade or a decade and a half. I mean, within a year or two, there's so many geopolitical issues that it's very difficult, certainly well beyond my expertise. So I think the renewable projects are still very valuable. The thing is, these are prices that are coming in and costs that are fixed for a 20-year period. So I think we need to pursue those. We need to do everything we can to help the developers to keep those costs down. I've heard some numbers, particularly for some of the projects on Maui, that are quite a bit higher than the numbers we're talking about now. So what is it over us? You got a 5-year version? Yeah, now it's running about $65 a barrel, but I mean, we saw over $100 a barrel at one point. So on the scale of where they've been in the last decade, I think they're pretty reasonable right now. But the other thing to keep in mind, if you look at that 12-cent solar going in, you look at a little bit more expensive wind, you look at oil coming in somewhere around 17 cents, that's a little bit more than 1/3 of the cost of electricity. So something to keep in mind, that 2/3 of the cost of electricity is the distribution, the transmission, the upgrades to harden the grid, make it resilient, and manage and run the entire operation. That 2/3 is not really going to change depending on the technology that we put on to generate the fuel. So we're talking about how big a change can we make in something that's about 1/3 of our cost. So even if you change it by 10 or 15%, that's 10 or 15% of 1/3. So it's hard to see big movements by small changes in the cost of production, would be my comment.
I guess a similar question that I asked others before, but I mean, given if you look at KIUC, for example, that they've gotten the furthest along on energy, on renewable energy, they have the lowest prices in the state now, despite having, you know, a higher cost per capita, you would assume, for infrastructure. Is HECO doing everything they can to, you know, move forward on our renewable energy goals and keep costs down, in your opinion?
I mean, I think, repeatedly said, you know, we always want to do better. I think HECO has done the best they could given, or as good as they thought, you know. I don't think they've done anything that was intended to not do the best possible. It's a very complex situation. As you've seen, the technologies have changed. Solar was very expensive, it's now cheap. It's now getting more expensive again. Oil is volatile, so there is a lot of play in those numbers. KIUC, being a little bit smaller and being a co-op, they bypassed a good bit of the rooftop solar and went directly to the utility scale solar at a time where that was really cost effective. And so I think part of the reason they're seeing, and I think their costs were not the lowest on the island last month, they might have crept back up a little bit, or maybe it was a bad solar month. You know, they went directly to the utility scale solar where all ratepayers benefit equally from it, and they put in a lot of those systems at a time where those costs and tax incentives were very good. So they kind of made some good decisions along the way that I think that helped them.
Well, HECO did not similarly make those good decisions?
And part of it, but there was a lot of push on the distributed solar and the requirements for the net metering on Oahu, and I honestly don't know why we were not quicker getting to the utility scale, although prior to their first RFP in 2019, you know, that
I mean, you don't think there's anything related to the ownership structure of you know, HECO versus KIUC that contributes to their incentives to push hard on, you know, having done those things earlier? Maybe it's a little bit different today, but this is something they could have done a decade ago.
It may be that they were able to make those decisions quicker because the utility scale solar kind of became available around that 2019, 2020 timeframe. And I think with them being a smaller grid and utility scale, they could just move quicker than a larger utility could. So I don't know whether ownership per se was the difference, but being smaller and being more nimble certainly helped them take advantage of the technology.
All right, thanks. I guess last question, Henry, do you agree? Is HECO doing everything they can?
I think the point being that most of the islands have a lot of rooftop solar. And rooftop solar is a lot more expensive than utility scale solar. So it's a trade-off. Do you want people to have a lot of distributed power? Or do you want to occupy a lot of agricultural fields with solar? It's a trade-off. And in hindsight, you can say one was better than the other, but we don't build in hindsight, we build going forward.
Okay, I don't know that I agree because I think it's all of the above, right? It's not either or for utility scale or solar or rooftop.
Except if you put in, it's whoever puts in last gets cut off first in general with the economic dispatch model, but rooftop solar is never curtailed. So rooftop solar is used even if there are cheaper alternatives that are available, but HECO can't because they must use rooftop solar to the maximum. So that's, again, a policy decision.
If they're on older contracts.
And all rooftop solar is never curtailed, all other systems are curtailed.
Well, not their like exports to the grid. I see what you're saying though.
And getting back to a question that you raised
It's
earlier.
framing, but yeah, okay.
Getting back to earlier, the South Point Wind Farm is the only renewable energy system tied to the grid that is still tied to the avoided cost of oil, and that's till 2027.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it. All right, we've had a lot of discussion. Members, any questions? Okay, we will move on to, find my agenda. Last bill on the agenda, we are getting short on time. So we ask people to please be concise. We're gonna implement a time limit. House Bill 1983 relating to natural resources. We wanted to have a discussion on this bill. I know there's a lot going on in it. So we'll see. But first up, we have the Attorney General on Zoom with comments. Department of Land and Natural Resources with comments. Oh, Attorney General, please go ahead. Sorry.
Good morning, Chair Lowen, Vice Chair Peruso.
Can you please speak up? Our mics are in the ceiling
Good
now.
morning, Chair, Vice Chair, committee member. Due to the involvement of the University of Hawaii, we suggest indicating that the law is a matter of statewide concern to avoid any constitutional issues.
Thank you. Department of Land and Natural Resources.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, Committee Member. I'm Megan Hubbard, Mineral Resources Specialist at the LNR. We stand on our written testimony and are available for questions.
And Department of Health. Comments. Department of Hawaiian Homelands.
Good morning, Chairman, as well as Vice Chair and members of the committee. My name is Kali Watson with the Department of Hawaiian Homelands. We support this bill, especially the portion that gives priority regarding the testing with respect to the $6 million goes to the, original or initial drilling project. I'd just like to add a little bit of comments to it relative to the importance of this particular bill as it relates to the department. We have a little bit over 11,000 homestead leases throughout the state. Right now, with respect to these homesteaders, they incur or have to endure $32 million a year in electricity costs, the highest in the nation. And we also have about 29,000 on our wait list. We recently, pursuant to Act 279, awarded and are in the process of building out close to 7,000 additional homesteads, which will also face the same challenge regarding electricity costs. This is an initial step, but it's a very, very important step for the department in trying to address not only the electricity costs that are existing as well as future lessees will face, but more so regarding the development of our lands. With the development of geothermal, I was listening to all this testimony regarding liquefied natural gas and oil and all these challenges the state is facing. I think if you look at the firm power as well as the availability of the existing resources, as well as the lessening of the adverse impact on the environment, geothermal development is where it's at for this state, and more so for our beneficiaries. In New Zealand, the Maoris have taken the initiative as well as the lead on development. I recently traveled there and saw not only the energy that was being developed, but how it was used, as well as the different enterprises that kind of fed off this energy production in so many tremendous ways that have very the same kind of ramifications for our program. You know, with respect to some of the things that we can look at is that the other enterprises that will be developed or come from this type of cheap energy and firm power, such as the dairies. A lot of the Maori in that particular nation use heated water to pasteurize the milk that's produced by the dairy. They also develop a lot of water resources. And as we all know, with the drought conditions throughout the state, additional water is needed. And the only real true source of that is underground water that entails the pumping of these and bringing up the water sources from within the lower parts of our infrastructure. So with respect to the running of these pumps, for example, in Molokai, the MIS, the Maui Molokai irrigation system, they run about $40,000 a month to run those pumps that provide agricultural water. That's real key to our particular homesteading program. So by getting and using and accessing this cheaper form of electricity, I think it will have a tremendous impact on our beneficiaries. So again, we really support this bill. We know it's this first step. In the coming year, we will be consulting with our beneficiaries as to their view as to whether we should be doing this. And if we do move forward with the sites identified by these tests, we would definitely continue the collaboration, but more so proceed in a way that not only protects the cultural sites and protects the environment, but benefits our beneficiaries in the program. Thank you.
And then we have Sustainable Energy Hawaii on Zoom, Peter Sternlicht. And we are doing a 2-minute time limit, please.
Aloha, Chairman Lowen. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good. And Vice Chair Peruso, members of the committee, I want to thank you for the opportunity to testify here today. Peter Sternlight, I'm a board member with Sustainable Energy Hawaii, a 501c3 nonprofit. Before I offer my personal comments, I'd like to say that Sustainable Energy Hawaii stands by its written testimony in support of HB 1983. So I'll try to be as succinct as possible. I think we're all experiencing a rapidly changing world. Every day we're faced with what truly are the existential challenges of climate change, global resource depletion, and geopolitical uncertainty. All this is happening as we also try to shift away from a fossil fuel economy to one that's increasingly powered by electricity. It seems the impacts of these challenges are moving much, much faster than we're able to keep up with. For us living here in Hawaii, a small, isolated island state, one that is dependent on the rest of the world for about 90% of what we need and consume, I think it's logical to think that the greater our self-sufficiency, the more secure we'll be and feel in our own lives. To achieve that outcome, we'll want to provide as much of what we need to sustain ourselves. Therefore, leveraging our indigenous resources in a manner that's responsible and sustainable over multiple generations is not only a logical means, but also critical to the outcome we seek. Hawaii is considered the only state in the Union without a formal geological survey. That leaves us essentially blind when it comes to delivering the well-informed management of our subsurface natural resources. The subsurface, or what's underground, is where we'd look to find new water supplies for our municipal and agricultural needs, as well as for geothermal heat, a potential source for indigenous power generation requiring virtually zero imported fuel. As well-intended as they were when they were written, existing regulatory protocols hinder our scientific institutions from acquiring the information.
That's the 2-minute timer if you can summarize.
Well, in summary, science right now is hindered from providing the kind of information that is needed to be able to offer credible management by the state over its resources. I think HB 1983 makes it, if it makes its way through all the committee hearings and all the amendments that follow, and is able to retain its original intent, I'm convinced that it would advance our ability for the state to qualify and quantify the indigenous resources we need to further increase statewide self-sufficiency. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Seeger Institute in support, DIBS Hawaii in support, Ulupono Initiative in support, Tiger Shark LLC, Stanley Osserman.
Thanks, Rep. Lowen and Chair Lowen and Chair Peruso. It's been about 7 years since I've actually come to the Capitol to testify, but I've been doing energy stuff for an awful long time, since before Governor Lingle was governor. At the governor's level, I advised her on the undersea cable as she dealt with the military, because I was a Guard representative and I represented her for the state at PACOM and the other military organizations. I submitted testimony and I stand on my testimony. But I'd also like to point out that the state of Hawaii has a fiduciary interest in our geothermal, water, and timber rights. You guys are responsible for it. This bill gives that responsibility some feet, because right now, Nicole Lowen of the University of Hawaii, when she goes to apply for permits to do sample drilling just to see what Peter talked about, the underground resources, she has to go through permitting stuff that's meant for commercial industry, commercial purposes, people making money on this thing. And that's not her job. Her job is to find the resources that belong to the state that the state manages. And that's critical. This bill is critical for her to have those tools. And that pretty much concludes my testimony. I'd like to answer a couple of questions that Rep. Lowen had. The price of oil and natural gas are tied at the hip.
Sorry, I would like to hear what you have to say, but does it relate to this bill?
It relates to this bill. Because you're considering the cost of opportunity costs and return on investment, you asked several questions on that. And I'll send you a briefing that I gave to the Society of Military Engineers last month. Be glad to show you how that has those facts. You can figure it would save a whole bunch of time from the previous discussions. But thank you for your opportunity to be here. I haven't been here for a long time. It's frustrating to be here sometimes, but I appreciate your patience, and I hope you'll pass this bill. We worked with Senator Wakai to help draft it, so I'm hoping that it'll get through. Thank you.
Thank you. And then we have 11 individuals in support and 14 in opposition. We have some individuals on Zoom. I want to remind everyone on Zoom we have a 2-minute time limit. First up, we have Jasmine Steiner. Please proceed.
Hi there, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Aloha. Aloha Chair and members of the committee. My name is Jasmine Steiner. I'm a born and raised Puna woman, and I am pretty much the single person left down here in Puna, Hawaii, who has lived their entire life from birth within geothermal radius. I've suffered the effects of this industry since the '91 blowout, where we nearly died on the Puna coast. I urge you to read my full written testimony, which details the legal issues and the massive liability the state is incurring by entertaining this bill. I stand in vehement opposition to HB 1983. This 20-page bill is a direct attempt to bypass Chapter 343 and exempt geothermal drilling from environmental oversight. I have watched my mom, Sarah Steiner, and my entire community fight this lie called clean energy since the day I was born. My mother is the pro se filer of the unprecedented Hawaii Geothermal Injunction, which includes over a dozen community members and 2 volcano scientists. Please excuse my nerves. I have never orally testified before. I send you guys my written testimonies. I don't feel they're ever read or given any care to. Let me try to hurry this up. The Puna community's injunction is based on the fact that these current geothermal expansion and drilling activities rely on a fraudulent environmental impact statement stating no underground impacts. It's incredibly ironic and deeply suspicious that while our case is seemingly stalled in the ICA, you here are having a bill that would allow the state to bypass any EIS statements entirely. This is not a coincidence, it's a calculation. While this bill is being entertained, my family and many more here in geothermal radius in Hawaii continue to pay the price. 4 generations of my ohana have been poisoned. It's all I know actually living this, from birth and watching you guys all in these seats pass all these things. My father, 90% mercury poisoning, diagnosed due to the geothermal. My daughter cannot attend public school because of the toxic air that nobody will monitor. My mother, while fighting you guys in court for decades, was diagnosed with stage 2 aggressive melanoma. Skin, lung, and bladder cancers are the primary markers of these emissions that nobody monitors here in Hawaii. Beyond the health and legal violations and the blatant fallacies to the Hawaiian people regarding energy costs,
2-minute time
this
limit,
same
so
spiel we hear.
please summarize.
Yes, it's the last little paragraph summarizing. The same spiel we hear yearly, there is the matter of the spirit. Geothermal is not just mining, it's the physical fracking of Madam Pele. It goes against everything we are here in Hawaii as Hawaii-born people. New Zealand means nothing. It's not Hawaii. It doesn't have the most unstable active volcano in the world after decades of unmonitored fracking. You're opening conduits into the world's most active volcano. The DHHL beneficiaries have said a'ole. The royal house of the still standing Hawaiian kingdom said a'ole in HB 1307 last year. So thank you folks for hearing my testimony. I urge you to reject HB 1983 in its entirety. Please do not participate in the cover-ups. Aloha, kahupuna out.
All right, and then we have Lawrence Wood on Zoom. Not present. Tara Rojas on Zoom. Please proceed. There's a 2-minute time limit. All right, no response. We will move on to Stacy Alapai.
Oh, okay.
On Zoom.
Aloha.
We'll come back, hang on. Stacy Alapai on Zoom. No longer present?
No response as well.
Okay, so please proceed, Tara. Tara Rojas. We have 2-minute time limit. Please proceed.
Aloha, Tara Rojas. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, wait. What now? Oh no, wait. I just want to say for any and all of these geothermal, even though it says that it is to be used distinctly from it's just subsurface kind of exploration, but I want to point that what gets built can easily be used to justify turning around and using it for geothermal in the long run. I'd always like to say that this whole geothermal push is a hazard to health, just as the other bill we were listening to. You're listening to so long. I really hope that you really stop and think and take the time to listen to what those who have been living in the radius of geothermal have been suffering. So even though it's stating that it's distinct, I would beg to differ. And when you read it, it almost contradicts itself. It says that it's distinct, but yet almost seems to contradict itself because anyhow, the what they are building for it's the geothermal and water center. Even though the bill just says it's not made for the geothermal. So I oppose this bill, and I really encourage you to use the testimonies of those again who have been speaking up loud and clear
That was
for
the-
saying no to
That
geothermal.
was the
So
2
mahalo
minute.
nui.
Thank you.
Mahalo.
Mahalo. And then we have Terry Napeahi on Zoom. Not present. And Kanoi Ulu Vehi Anuhea Case on Zoom. Not present. Was there anyone else here to testify on this measure in person or Zoom? If not, members, any questions? All right, if not, brief recess and we will come back for decision making. All right, we are back for decision making on the agenda. We'll start with the agenda we just finished, and then we'll do the decision making agenda, which was 11:15. But first up, we have HB 2486 relating to solar energy. So my intention is to pass this out, but I need a little more time, and we have time on this because it's only a double. To look at this and the previous bill that we heard and make sure that we're getting the best of both and incorporating all the comments. So for this, we're going to defer decision making until Thursday at 10:30. House Bill 1568. So this is the LNG bill. So for this, we're going to make a number of amendments. So instead of an outright ban, so we understand the concerns about just eliminating entire possible fuel source, but we want to make sure ratepayers are protected and that the state's energy goals are protected. And so we're going to add some provisions to accomplish that, hopefully. So we will add a provision that any proposal brought to the PUC for approval must include the entire cost of fully amortizing any LNG-specific infrastructure fully by 2045. We will also add a provision that no contracts may be approved that include a volumetric commitment to LNG, and that if cheaper, cleaner energy is available, that the utility must be required to purchase that and not be locked into using an amount of LNG greater than what is necessary to accommodate the maximum amount of renewables on the grid. We will add a provision that no contract should be approved that will increase costs to neighbor island residents, whether for purchase of electricity from the utility or for increased costs that may arise from downstream effects of having to switch to importing a lot of products that we were previously able to produce on island. And we will provide that for approval of any contracts that would allow for LNG to be used. Okay, wait, hang on, I wrote this separately. So this will be under 2696B, we'll add a new subsection 5. So these are the core things the PUC should be considering when they do their approvals. And I think this should already be included in that, but just to make it extra clear, we will clarify that the PUC should consider whether any new contracts that will lead to utilization of new fossil fuel sources should consider the opportunity cost of this investment, whether it would create a dependency on that fuel source that would hinder the growth of renewables, shift attention and resources away from developing our local renewable and lower emission resources, and consider the risk that committing to a lock-in of fossil fuels in the present would pose in the future. And whether, and then I want to add a provision that any contract the PUC approves should protect the ratepayers from volatility that comes with the fossil fuel market. We will also be making amendments to the purpose clause to reflect the contents of the bill, the new contents of the bill, and we will defect the date to the year 2000 and move this forward for further consideration. What's that? Yeah. Okay. With that, members, any discussion? Oh, 3000, sorry, did I say two? The year 3000 as is our default defective date. Members, any discussion? All right, seeing none, Vice Chair, please take the vote.
House Bill 1568, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair voting aye. Representative Chun.
Aye.
Representative Kahaloa.
Aye.
Representative Kush.
Aye.
Representative Quinlan is excused, as is Representative Matsumoto. Chair, your recommendation has been adopted.
Thank you. And then moving on to House Bill 1983 relating to natural resources. We're going to take one more day to consider whether we want to amend this and move it forward or possibly defer it and look at our other geothermal bills as the vehicles for funding. I think the goals of this bill are laudable, but there's a lot of also concerns that have been raised from different corners. So I need a little more time. So we'll defer decision making to tomorrow, Wednesday, February 11th at 11:30 p.m. Thank you to our Ag Chair for allowing us to use his time, 11:30 a.m. It's been a long couple days. And yep, with that, that's the end of this agenda. So we'll adjourn. 15 a.m. decision-making agenda. For House Bill 1924 relating to recycling, this is the mattress stewardship program. So we are going to turn this into a working group, and the working group will require a report to the legislature prior to the 2028 session. It will be chaired by Department of Health, and the membership of the committee will include Director of Health or their designee, City and County of Honolulu, DEM, County of Kauai, Public Works, County of Maui, DEM, County of Hawaii, DEM, a representative from a mattress stewardship organization, a representative from mattress manufacturers, a representative from mattress retailers, a representative from a donation organization, a representative from a repair and reuse company, a representative from a recycling company. I'm going to add a representative from in-state waste to energy company, and then any other members that the department deems necessary and helpful. And we will put a defective date on that of the year 3000 and move it forward for further consideration. With that, members, any discussion? If not, Vice Chair.
House Bill 1924, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair voting aye. Representative Chun.
Aye.
Representative Kahaloa.
Aye.
Representative Kush.
Aye.
Representative Quinlan and Representative Matsumoto are excused. Chair, your recommendation has been adopted.
Thank you. And for House Bill 1928, relating to the deposit beverage container recycling, we're going to take a little more time to finish working out these details. So this we will also defer to tomorrow for decision making, Wednesday 2/11 at 11:30 a.m. here in this room. Thank you to our Ag Chair. And then finally, for House Bill 2435 relating to portable plug-in solar generation, we're going to use the other bill we heard today as the vehicle for addressing this question. So we're going to defer this bill. And with that, we are adjourned.